Hello and welcome. I'm Erin Cuthbert, footballer for Chelsea and the Scotland national team, and you're listening to the Blue Day podcast.
Chelsea!
Welcome back, my friends, to the podcast that never ends. Yes, this is the Blue Day podcast, folks, and for Chelsea fans everywhere, every day is a Blue Day. And I am your host, Keith Lawrence, and joining me again this week is a man who cannot wait for the World Cup to begin, as would I. He's former Chelsea defender Steve Wicks, and we've got many, many views coming up on today's show. We're going to talk about the Newcastle poor performance. We're going to talk about the last month or so, the last 6 weeks of Potter's reign. We're going to talk about the recruitment, backroom staff, the recruitment side of buying recruitment individuals. And we're going to potentially talk about a certain one or two incomings that decided to do interviews with one Piers Morgan. So, Steve, welcome back on the show. Shall we talk about the weather, or I'm a celebrity, before we talk about the dross that is Chelsea Football Club at the moment? Or should we get right into it?
I've heard that we're signing Matt Hancock as a PR person at the club. No,
It can't get any worse than what we got at the moment.
Let's get into it, mate.
Come on, let's go. Let's go.
I'm very concerned about my football club that I love dearly, and the fans that are very special. And I'm looking at what's happened over the last few months, and it's, to me, it's quite frightening. You know, I've seen the most well-oiled machine that was Chelsea Football Club under Roman go to where we are at the moment, where no one knows the best formation, nobody knows the best players. We've signed players that, in my opinion, don't deserve to play for Chelsea, and also players that we've got existing players at Chelsea that are better than them, and I find it a mishmash. And very concerning at this time.
Well, what we're going to do today, as I said on the top of the show, we're going to discuss over the last, few weeks, the dire, horrible performances, and that's putting it lightly, what Chelsea have come up with in certain matches. We're going to ask who's to blame. We're going to provide our thoughts, and we're obviously going to talk about my story of going up to Newcastle last weekend, and to say that was an interesting trip is an understatement. But we're going to talk as well. We're going to ask certain questions about Potter's tactics, the decision making on certain players not playing, certain players that are playing. So, Steve, we haven't discussed it at length for a while, but we did say after the Brighton defeat, bit of a blip, okay. Probably a little bit of bump in the road. Against Arsenal, seemed more like a crater in the road. And now we seem like the whole car's now actually gone into the bloody road. The actual road's sunk and we've stuck in it. Steve, who's to blame? I mean, listen, you've been around chairmen, you've been around interesting characters in the dressing room, and you've seen it with managers falling out with players, or you've seen players perhaps not playing for the manager, or perhaps not interested. And you could possibly look into the World Cup as a factor, bearing in mind it's next week as we're recording, so some players might not have put 100% in because they're worried about getting injured for this World Cup, a World Cup that allegedly players don't want to play in because of what's going on in that country, but needless to say, they don't want to over-exuberate themselves because they're worried about getting injured. For Chelsea Football Club, and we're not used to this, are we? We're not used to this big blip to the point where there's no direction. Beforehand, when we used to have a blip, you used to have Terry, Lampard, Cole, Cech, Drogba to get us out of it. We don't have that anymore. We don't have players that can take other players by the scruff of the neck, literally, and say, sort yourselves out, otherwise there's the door. We don't have that anymore. And we don't have, and I said this to a couple of people over the weekend, and I said this to a couple of ex-Chelsea players recently, we don't have any elite players anymore. Which players in our squad would you say the top echelons of European football would go, I want him in my team? We don't have any anymore. And that's the sign of the times, where we do not have players that clubs would they would go into debt to buy. They're not looking at our players anymore. And then we've got players on high wages we've brought in for big transfer fees, which we're going to discuss in a minute. And then 12, 18 months down the line, we're trying to flog them because no one's going to pay their wages. That's the state of Chelsea Football Club at the moment. And who's to blame? Owner, manager, or players, or all three?
I think the owner of the club, I think, has limited knowledge of football in this country, in European football. I think he's come in. I think, I've always said, and I think you agree with me, Keith, when our two fullbacks are fit, I think we got the two of the best fullbacks there are, right? We go and we spend, Man City want to buy the guy at Brighton, and they make a stand. They're not going more than 40 million quid.
Cucurella you're talking about.
Yeah, right? Yeah. He's going to be a squad player at Man City. Not a first team player, he's going to be a squad player. We got to 60 million quid. No way can that guy play left of a three as a centre back.
No.
Not good. Right? So you're looking at him purely as a left back. Not in the same class as Chilwell. Chilwell is a much better player. Right? I watched the Arsenal, documentary. Aubameyang, I would not have him anywhere near my football club.
You said this when we was linked with him. You said this in the summer.
What we did, we didn't address the big problems we had in our squad. What we did, we brought the most irrelevant signings, and we didn't address. We needed the new Drogba. We needed someone that would get up and head that ball against Bayern Munich in that final, and the guy that scored many, many goals to win us trophies. We needed that focal point up front. We tried to do it with Lukaku, who, to be fair, was an absolute disgrace. Didn't give our club the respect it deserved. And then we go and sign, in desperation, a guy that I saw at Arsenal Football Club in that documentary that made me feel ill. I have never seen such a brash, blasé, individual in my life. And all of a sudden, because we're so desperate, we sign him. He's probably on an absolute huge wage because he was the only option. But that should have been our number one priority. That Rudiger, we spent all that money on centre-backs. Why didn't we pay him and keep him? He'd had the best season he'd had at Chelsea, and he was a leader of men. Why have we spent, I don't know how much, 100 million quid on two players when we had a centre half that's better than both of them? I find it hard to believe the management of this football club that is now, of all the hard work we've done to get to where we are, and the way we've been ruthless. Romans people were ruthless. If they changed manager, but actually every time they changed manager, we won trophies. So you can't criticise them. what I've seen here is this scattergun approach in the transfer market with no thought that has put our whole club at risk. We then get a manager that has no experience in Europe, no experience of that level.
Well, he's got experience in Europe. I mean, he has, to his credit, he has managed in Europe. He had to go away to Europe, to overseas, to try and build his coaching career because he
in Sweden. In Sweden, hardly.
No, it's not. You're right, but he's still got the bottle to go out and do something that many English managers wouldn't do.
No, but listen. There's something I want to really say here. I want him to succeed because I think he's a nice bloke. I think he's obviously good at his job, but there's very, very much a difference about having to keep someone in the Premier League and the other spectrum to win the Champions League. There's a massive difference between that demand. And he did a very good job at Brighton. And his team played attractive, organised football. But everything was built around survival. Chelsea's not about survival. Chelsea is about the upper echelons of football, Champions League, winning the Premier League. That's what we're about. And I'm just looking at it. And again, we're employing the whole of Brighton Football Club at Chelsea, when all they do is they look at players, oh, he'd be good because he'll help us survive. And it was all about survival. Why? Why on earth are we doing this? I don't know. I'm absolutely flabbergasted with the whole approach of the new owners, because to me, yes, they've spent loads of money, but my God, they've been taken to the cleaners. They've been taken to their naivety in football in this country has shown where they've paid the most exorbitant money for players that, in true sense of the words, I don't know. I'm so frustrated because I'm looking now, where do we go from here? And I can't see any improvement that can be made to where we are at the moment. And I think we are struggling for top six. I think with Newcastle doing what they're doing, and if you look at the Newcastle format and our format, and you look at the Brazilian, I can't remember his name, he plays in midfield, who looks
Bruno, very good footballer.
Player, right? That's what we've been crying out for. A midfield player that can create, instead of a midfield player that plays the ball square all the time and plays deep where it's easy. They've gone out, they've put a side together, and they know what their game plan is. Chelsea Football Club, at the moment, Graham Potter doesn't know what his best formation is, doesn't know what his best team is. And we are victims of that because we're losing games and playing, and I'm sure, I watched 15 minutes of that game or 10 minutes of that game at Newcastle. And honestly, I haven't seen a more inept Chelsea side for a long, long time. And also the other thing is, we've kept players that should have left the club. That's what we've done. We've got dead wood of players that aren't good enough right at the top end of where we've been for the last 15 years, 10 years. We've kept players that we know aren't good enough, but we've kept them. And that, I think, is just frustrating.
I'm just looking at the table, and I have not looked at it for a while. Honestly, I don't normally look at the table this time of year anyway. But I've just looked at the table now, Steve, and it is pretty grim reading. We've got 21 points from 14, right? We're 9 points off Newcastle.
Yeah.
We are 16 points from Arsenal.
Yeah.
16. I'd expect to be quite a way from Manchester City, so that I'm not concerned with that. We're 8 points from Tottenham, and we're 5 points from Man United. We're only a point off Liverpool. We've won the same amount of games as Liverpool, so if people are saying it's a catastrophe, if you just look at Liverpool, it's not that bad. But many Chelsea fans who I spoke to the weekend or even beforehand, we were talking about the state of the club. It's not the defeats that's the problem. It's the performances. It's the manner of the defeats. Against Arsenal, it was just... It was sad to watch, where you're the home team, you leave arguably your best midfielder on the bench for the side who's top of the league at that moment, and you just play dull. But I thought Sarri's football was bad. I thought Tuchel's football was bad.
It's pedestrian.
This ain't better.
It's side to side, back.
This ain't better at all. At the moment, it's not better. Now, I will put the argument out there that some Chelsea fans have spoke to me about, is the fact that this isn't his team. He's come in mid-season. This isn't his team. He needs at least 2 transfer windows. At this rate, he ain't going to get 2 transfer windows. Not if, as you say, Chelsea are sinking quicker than the Titanic at this stage.
Keith, I'll tell you something which was so important, was his interview after the Arsenal game. When all he kept talking about was Arsenal. Mm-hmm. And I feel like saying to him, shaking him and saying, do you know what now? You're manager of Chelsea. You can't talk like Brighton. You can't go to an interview and say how good Arsenal were and they deserve the win and they're this, they're that. You can't do that as manager of Chelsea.
Or the worst one is when he actually said after the Arsenal, and I think he even said it after the Newcastle game as well, the lads played well.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
We do want to sort of touch on it a little bit. In terms of the Newcastle game, we're not going to talk in depth about the performance because we all know the performance was shite. But the one thing that I got from that game, Steve, was, in fact, who didn't play. We talked about who did play, like Cucurella and Koulibaly, who I thought had a bad game.
Yeah.
He put Pulisic and Ziyech on to try and win the game. I mean, that's desperate for you. They started against Man City last week, for crying out loud. That's the state of the club at the moment. But he didn't play Aubameyang. He didn't feature Aubameyang. He didn't feature Sterling. Now, in your opinion, Steve, from a player's perspective and from a coach's perspective, is that Graham Potter delivering a message to the board?
I don't think you can, Keith. At this stage of his managerial career at Chelsea, I don't think he can do that. I think he's got.
Well, is he provided a message to say, I don't want these players. These players aren't going to be in my thoughts for the future.
Oh, I thought he said about Cucurella that he was one of the best players he's ever worked with. Aubameyang, as I've said, he's like Marmite. You either like him or you don't. And if he's scoring 25 goals a season, you like him. But then you look at what he adds to the squad when he's not scoring goals. He's just, to me, that of all the signings we've made, he is the most frustrating one that I've had to deal with him signing for Chelsea. I've never seen such a flash person in my life who wears shoes to match his car and gold shoes and this. My God, to me, I wouldn't want that player near my football club. And when he signed, I was absolutely gutted. Have I seen anything that makes me feel like he's going to do anything? No. He had one game where he worked quite hard and got back. But that's when things start to go wrong. Trust me, when things start to go wrong as a manager, he's the last player you need in your club. And to be fair to Arteta, he couldn't get him out quick enough. And to me, that says everything. Now, that's not Graham Potter's fault. Graham Potter wasn't even here when they signed Aubameyang. So he's got to deal with that now.
No, but then if you look at from the player's perspective in Aubameyang, and I'm not his biggest fan. I think we signed him 5 years too late. He signed for Chelsea for one reason. Weren't for money. It was for Tuchel. A week later, Tuchel goes. What's his motivation? Apart from money, what's his motivation? Nothing. If he doesn't like Potter, which seems as if he doesn't, he isn't going to play. Yeah, in terms of, he'll be on the pitch, but he's not going to perform. So already you've lost one person. And then you look at people like Hakim Ziyech.
Oh, God. What a disgrace.
You look at someone like Christian Pulisic, who, you know, I will get American fans of the podcast or even at Chelsea come up to me and say, Christian's a good player, but he's not elite level player. Okay, fine, fair enough, but he doesn't change games anymore. He changed games for 6 months when there was no crowds in the stadium. Since then, nothing. Nothing.
Well, I'll tell you something. As an ex-professional footballer, I bet you that guy works hard in training. When he comes on, he works extremely hard, and he tries to make things happen. Ziyech is an absolute disgrace. As a footballer, and the principles you have when you're a footballer, he's an absolute disgrace. And that was one of Frank's signs. So you can't Potter, but get him out of the club. Get him out. Honestly, people like that cause problems at a football club. And this is what we've got. We've got players that really don't want to be at Chelsea.
No. Well, on that subject, there are rumours, and I haven't heard this from a reliable source, but I've heard it through people that have come up to me and mentioned it. You've got Mason Mount contract situation. There seems to be a little bit of progress. How much progress, I don't know. At the moment, he hasn't signed a new deal. So there's talks about him potentially, he might be off. You've got Mendy allegedly wanting to go.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Let Mendy go.
If Mendy goes, would Kepa then be number one? I think, in my honest opinion, I think Potter prefers Kepa than Mendy. But
listen, that's very hard for you to say. That must be very hard for you to say, Keith.
Yes,
After
it was.
That must be very hard for you to say. But clear the decks of people that don't want to be at Chelsea. Get rid of them. Because they become a cancer.
But it's not that easy anymore. It used to be, but it's not because of the wages and because of everything that goes with it. It's difficult.
Yeah, it is difficult.
Unless they go on a Piers Morgan show and absolutely berate the club, then yeah, you could possibly terminate their contract, which we might discuss in a minute.
We'll probably sign him in the close season.
I guarantee you now, Todd is looking at that situation and thinking, we need a goal scorer.
You're dealing with Todd's ego as well. Todd wants to be the super owner that signs all these so-called superstars.
The Americans will lap it up, both abroad and in this country. Many of these guests will want to come to the club Chelsea, not the Westview, but the Chelsea executive boxes to see Ronaldo play. You're going to have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of Ronaldo shirts being sold with Chelsea or whatever number. And you're thinking to yourself, is he going to change the situation at Chelsea? Probably not, no. He's 37. If it was Johan Cruyff or Pele, maybe.
Mate, I played against Johan Cruyff at Chelsea when he played for the Cosmos. And he put more effort into that game, which was a friendly, effectively. And he was unbelievable.
Trevor Aylett mentioned him as well when we interviewed him.
Unbelievable. And I look at Johan Cruyff and I look at, with all the problems Johan Cruyff had in his career, he'd never call Piers Morgan, go on a talk show and slag everyone at his football club off because he's not getting his own way. Mm. And do you know what? We want to sign him. Let's have.
Where else can he go, Steve? I mean, we mentioned it off air. Unless Portugal win the World Cup, he isn't going to go to America yet, because I think he still wants to prove a little bit in the Champions League. Unless Portugal win the World Cup, that ain't going to happen. So he ain't going to go to America. He ain't going to go Bayern
with Messi. That's what he's got. He's got a personal competition with Messi.
Yes.
Wants to. Hold it. He complained 1 week that they didn't use him as a sub. The next week, he asked him to get changed and go on, and he walks down the tunnel. He's totally. Listen, one of the greatest footballers that has ever walked the planet. His goal record is next to none, right? But when you think you're a superstar and the king of the game, and it's all about you at 37 years of age, and you behave the way he's behaved, and you absolutely hammered your football club and everyone at your football club, what owner in their right mind would want to sign that player? What owner in their right mind would want to sign that player? It's 5 grades on.
I tell you which owner. We have him. I tell you which owner will have him.
Because it's all about him. The one thing about Roman was it was never about him. You never heard from him. You never did it. The things were done. It wasn't about him. It wasn't about his ego. It was about the best things he thought for Chelsea Football Club. Full stop. This guy, and I didn't like him when he was doing the walk whistles when we scored, and there was a thing on the telly about it. I'm looking at him thinking, hold on a minute, mate. You're doing a Chelsea Football Club. Show a bit of class. And to me, we've gone on from that. And I'll never be invited to Chelsea Football Club again. But I feel very strongly about it. Very strongly about it. We've gone from the sublime to the ridiculous. We're signing the backroom staff at Brighton. We're looking at Ronaldo. Where have our standards gone? And they've dropped to depths. If we sign Ronaldo, I wouldn't want to go to Chelsea again after what he's done and how he's behaved at Man United Football Club. I wouldn't go to Chelsea again. I feel that strongly about it. The club deserves better. The supporters do. Let's go and get. We've talked about the guy from Leipzig. We've talked about,
Well, he's out of the World Cup with an injury. We are, but allegedly, again, this is only rumours. Chelsea haven't come out with it. RB Leipzig haven't come out with it. This is still rumours. The deal's close to being done. An announcement will be made after the World Cup. It might even be made beforehand because Christopher Nkunku is not going to be in the World Cup. But we're close to signing him, and he's a good player. Is he another Werner? We don't know, but we're close to signing him. He's an exciting player. They're all young and upcoming players. You've got Potter, who's a young / upcoming manager. Are we going to see this? Are we going to see bad results before we see good results? Are we have to go through the thorns to see the roses?
Well, yes. What I'm saying, Keith, is that there's been no thought to the signings. We haven't built a team. The one thing that happens at Man City, whether people like it or not, and Liverpool to a certain extent, although Liverpool haven't got the spending capabilities of Man City, is they're creating a big jigsaw puzzle. And there's little pieces that fit that jigsaw puzzle, and they won't buy anyone that doesn't fit that jigsaw puzzle, right? They won't, right? When they're convinced that it's the right fit, they buy that player and introduce him to the squad, like the Argentinian boy who came from nowhere, who's scoring the goals at the moment. He scored about 4 in the last 4.
Oh, Alvarez. Yes, beg your pardon. Yes, yes.
Right. He fitted into that jigsaw puzzle. They got rid of Jesus, right? He's fitted in that thing perfectly. That who was the person I kept going on about signing for Chelsea? That's the person we got to go for. That's the person that we should break the bank for. Haaland.
Yeah.
He's the right, because he is your focal point in your team, not left backs, not what I can't work out. Everyone said, "Oh, we need a centre half, we need a centre back." Yeah, we did do, because we allowed a very, very good one to go, who's the same age as Koulibaly. Why didn't we keep him? Why didn't we pay a third of his signing on fee to the player to keep him? Because he was set, he was playing brilliantly, he was a leader. It's, to me, I can't work out. There's been no thought about building a team, none whatsoever.
Well, what I saw Saturday, Steve, to sum up your view on it, Newcastle are a club going places, and they are a team. Yeah. We, on the other hand, are going backwards, and we're not playing as a team. I see 11 individuals with maybe 3 or 4 subs, and there's no direction in terms of going forward, both club and on the pitch. I see no leadership, and I've been Azpilicueta's biggest fan. He should have left in the summer. Yeah. He wanted to go in the summer. And again, we talked about Aubameyang's motivation. What's his motivation? Is he waiting for his contract to finish? Because he didn't want to be there in the summer. He wanted to go. And Chelsea activated on his contract because they were worried about the issue with the owners and bringing in players. I don't think he's showing any leadership on the pitch, probably even off it anymore. And there's, like we said before, there are no world-class players in that Chelsea side, both first 11 and on the bench, that the world elite teams are going to go, I'd like to buy him. There's none. Kante is injured every other month, it seems, and he's decreasing in age and ability. Jorginho, too slow.
No, got to go. I said to you,
Pulisic, no.
Mount,
he hasn't shown it at all this season. Shown it in glimpses, I beg your pardon. He has shown it in glimpses in certain games, but not consistent enough. The goalkeeping situation, people know my views on Kepa, and Mendy, I think, has been shot since Tuchel subbed him in the cup final. But we don't have a good squad anymore. Listen, I said this last season. Steve, I probably said this to you a dozen times. I said this to other people. I laughed at Manchester United and Arsenal last season because, for me, they were the worst United teams I've ever seen in my life. They were the worst Arsenal side I've ever seen in my life. I'll admit it. This is the worst Chelsea side I've seen. And even when looking at, books and how the squads have been and how our teams have fared, before I supported Chelsea, I would say this is the worst Chelsea team in 30 years.
Yeah.
Without doubt. I would say that relegation side, obviously the side that you was in, bearing in mind it still had people like Kerry Dixon, Tony DeRigo and Pat Nevin, Joe McLaughlin amongst others. That was better than this current team. In terms of passion, in terms of putting everything else on the line for your teammates, for the 3 points. Yeah, you might not get the 3 points, but you're going to bloody well try. I don't see that in this team. Nothing. Brozier tries.
Do you know what John
I'll give him
was
that.
it? Yeah.
Brozier tries.
Do you know what John Terry was? Do you know what John Terry was? John Terry was an enforcer. If anyone wasn't pulling their weight, he'd have the balls to go up and tell them face to face that you're not doing enough. He'd be out of breath and out of work now. He'd be absolutely knackered trying to tell the players that, Ziyech, he would have got hold of him and he'd have told him a few home truths and wouldn't accept it as the captain of Chelsea. That's what they had in those days. They had leaders of men. Leaders.
Well, it's not just JT. You look at people like Tony Adams. You look at people like Roy Keane. You look at... It's just a sad state of affairs at the moment at Chelsea. I don't know when their next wins are going to come. People are thinking Bournemouth's a home banker. I've seen us get spanked by Bournemouth. And it hasn't been years and years and years ago. It's been quite recent. I've seen Aki score, the third goal in a 3-0 defeat. So that's not going to be an easy game. I don't know where our win's going to come from. Potter, if I was him, I would be praying that James and Chilwell's back after the World Cup. I would be praying every single day that those two will be back after the World Cup, because at the moment, there's no spark there. There's no positivity in that team. We can't score goals. We don't score enough goals. And our defence, our confidence is shot to put.
No, it is.
So I'm glad the World Cup is going to be on Sunday. I can't wait. I'm going to get my Vuvuzela out for Qatar versus Ecuador. I cannot wait, because finally it's football that I can enjoy.
Without any pressure.
Exactly. Get me Vuvuzela out.
Yeah. Do you know what I do? If I was Chelsea now, I signed Tielemans and Maddison.
We said that the other week. Yeah, we did.
That's the type of players we need. Offensive, creative players that don't play backwards and forwards and go forward. I'll tell you what, I'd do a threesome. I'd sign RV Barnes as well.
Yeah, we said that the other week.
Barnes,
Tielemans and Maddison.
Those are the type of players we need. Offensive, creative, play higher up the field, up the pitch, so they keep in contact with the front players. So maybe not them, but that type of player. And Tielemans, for me, I think I signed Tielemans in January. Arsenal. You watch.
That's all we need, isn't it? But let's hope the lads who are at the World Cup. Have a good World Cup, and we will be following their progress on the show as well, so keep your eyes out for that one. But before we go, Steve, there's going to be two little things we're going to talk about. And in fact, actually, I've got a message that I want to read out here. This is for you. Someone contacted us on Twitter and wanted to air his thoughts and get your view on it. I'm bringing it up now. He's from a gentleman by the name of Tom Hine, and he's mentioned this. One of my favourite memories in the 50-plus years of following Chelsea was watching one of the first games of Trevor Aylott, who we had on the show the other week. Yeah. We were playing Nottingham Forest, and we won 1-0 thanks to Trevor's goal at Stamford Bridge. It was always a shame that he never went on to become a regular. But does Steve see any resemblance with Brozier these days? Us fans love a big goal-scoring number 9 and just hope that Brozier is the man.
I think that's a very good point, actually. I think, Trevor was he had a great touch for a big man. And what Trevor needed was someone to believe in him 100% and put their arm around him and say, right, you're going to be my number 9. I think Brozier's the same. I think he's got all the ability, but what he needs is someone to say to him, I believe in you, I'm going to back you, and I'm going to give you the opportunity. And that's what young centre forwards thrive on, is the belief that someone believes in them. And I hope the boy, to be fair, don't ask me, I'd have him 20 times over Aubameyang.
Well, he started against Newcastle. What we're going to talk about now, because I went to Newcastle on Saturday morning. It was a bloody early train, but I went to Newcastle. Ended up stopping off at Darlington to see a good friend of mine who lives in Bishop's Auckland. So I stopped off at Darlington. So we went to the game together. My God, there's a lot of steps at that ground.
Yeah.
A lot of steps in that ground. It's a nice city. I'll give them that. The people at Newcastle. Lovely city. Quite impressed with the ground. Where they put their away supporters. Jesus Christ. I will mention a couple of things as well. Their gravy on their chips. Superb. 5 Michelin stars for me. That was fabulous. That was, right? Unfortunately, the other part of their food weren't so great. If I have to be a critic. But the other thing I will mention as well was there's a little bit of talk as well. There was videos up on social media. There was talking about a riot that was happening between Newcastle fans and Chelsea fans after the game. Wasn't a riot as such, but I was actually stuck in it. What happened was, and I had this first-hand eyewitness account. Chelsea fans can only go down one way, right? So when you go down the steps, you can only go down through one little bit of the corridor. You come out the corridor, you come out underneath the stand, and the police are escorting you away. Well, unfortunately, because we was in the same stand as the Newcastle lot, you've got the Newcastle lower section coming out the same time as we were. Well, then you had a parade of coppers and stewards trying to block Newcastle fans and Chelsea fans. And then you'd get the one or two little cretins, trying to wind you up.
Fire.
Trying to wind you up. There was Newcastle fans spitting at us. There was Chelsea fans spitting back and whatnot. And then you had a couple of Chelsea fans trying to jump over the police to try and get to the Newcastle lot. I was unfortunately caught in it, not trying to antagonise the situation. I was trying to get the hell out because I wanted to get to a pub so I could drown my sorrows. But there was a couple of obviously little bits whereby they ended up having a tiny ruck, but it wasn't a full-scale riot. It wasn't a full-scale riot at all. But that obviously got from the ground to Newcastle train station, where it got to the stage where you got the police telling Chelsea fans, you either go on this train or you go onto the other platform. There was one train that left at 8 o'clock and the next train was going to leave at 8:15. So me and a friend of mine decided to go on that train at 8:15. Did that train leave at 8:15? It was a train originally meant to leave at 7:05, so it was an hour and 10 minutes late anyway. It didn't leave Newcastle till 9:10. By that point, everyone was crammed into this train like sardines in a tin. Couldn't move, couldn't breathe. There was a 7-foot giant that was trying to find the toilet on the train. So everyone had to try and squeeze through, and people's faces were touching the glass because they couldn't try to get this big jolly green giant to move. And as there was a little bit of a ruck actually going on, there was somebody that was being quite cruel and vile to these ladies. So this particular person decided to take matters into his own hands and push one of the guys away, and it ended up opening this door that we thought was locked, but it turned out it was just sort of latched on the latch. They've opened the door. You know, on the trains, the long distance trains, you get like the food cart, you get like with the drinks and everything else, and you end up sort of buying it, right? Well, that's what was inside this little cupboard on the train. Unattended. Well, people are a bit pissed off, either because they've seen their team lose or the fact it's cold and they're in Newcastle. Well, that cart was raided. All the beer was taken, all the gin was taken, even the crisps were thrown all over the place. There was dry milk that was taken, and by the time we got off that train out to Darlington was about 10 o'clock. I couldn't wait to get to sleep, and I'm thinking that's Chelsea away for you. But that's the Saturday, Steve. The Sunday, I was very, very pleased because it took me 6 months, or nearly over 6 months, to get him on the show. But I finally was able to see him face to face, and he's heard many good things about him through other people, and I wasn't disappointed. I had the pleasure, and his interview is going to be on the show next week. I had the pleasure of meeting Joe Allen. Former Chelsea striker. He was at Newcastle as well. He was good friends with Vinnie Jones and Paul Gascoigne. Had a lovely interview with him, and he gave me a lovely present as well. He gave me Jack Charlton's tea bags. It's a box.
Oh, right.
Called Northumberland Tea, and it's got a picture of Sir Jack Charlton on it. Very nice present. I don't drink tea, but I've kept it as a keepsake. But Joe Allen, former Chelsea striker, he's going to be on the show next week talking about his Chelsea career. And that was a Sunday. So Sunday was lovely. Saturday, not so much.
No. Well,
and that was my weekend.
Yeah, we're not getting that good of match days, are we? It's a little bit difficult to take. But let's hope everyone pulls their finger out and starts, what's the word I'm looking for? Treating our club with a bit of respect and moral honesty to go out there and work their socks off. And if they win or they lose, at least the Chelsea fans know they've worked their socks off. That's all we want, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's not quite there at the moment, is it?
No, and let's just hope that we get a win in our next game, at least, because we've got Bournemouth and Forest, Steve, as our next 2 games.
Yeah.
If we don't get a win in either, I think, and I'm not antagonising, I'm not a Trump, whereby I'm trying to antagonise the situation, I think you're going to see some fans turn. I think there's going to be some people that will not be happy, and they're going to vent their anger. They're going to vent their frustration.
Oh, to be fair, if we get beaten by Bournemouth or Forest, listen, I think they've got every right to vent their anger. It's not as if those are 2 defining games. As a Chelsea, you're looking 6 points. Next 2 games, we're going to get 6 points. And I just hope our standards haven't dropped that much where we don't get 6 points in those 2 games.
I think it's not
Because I'd
the
like to
result
think-
that's key. It will be the performance. It will be the
Uh,
performances.
yeah, I agree. But if you get 6 points, the look of the league would be totally different.
Mm.
We'd be in a totally different position because, you know, there's some. Tottenham have got a couple of our games coming up now. We're 8 points behind them. I never thought I'd ever say that at this stage of the season, 8 points behind Tottenham. I think that's what I'm finding really hard to take at the moment is the fact that how we've slumped, and they're not even playing that great of football, but they're 8 points in front of us. That's what I'm looking at. I'm thinking to myself, dearie me, you know, Tottenham 4-3 they won the other day. My God,
Yeah.
they got out of jail.
Yeah.
You know, but what I will say, if we won in the league 3 times, would we ever come back and win 4-3 at the moment? No. Would we have it in ourselves to battle away and keep going? And no, we wouldn't. We'd roll over and die at the moment, and that's what concerns me. We're not playing with the passion and pride that our club deserves. I don't see many Chelsea players breaking their neck for the cause. And that's what concerns me. And the people I feel sorry for are the people like yourself that travel all the way to Newcastle and see a very inept performance. Because that's not, you know, you spend, especially now with what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And now,
Yeah.
you know, people spend that sort of money and go up to Newcastle, you expect your team to give everything. And if they give everything and they get beaten, you can accept that. But it's when you think, oh my God, he never tried a leg, he never tried a leg, he never. Well, actually, if that's the situation, who's to blame?
I'm thinking of that song, Road to Nowhere. That's what I think sums it up.
Chris Rea.
No, Chris. No, that's Road to Hell. Well, actually, yeah, that's probably more. That's probably more accurate. That's probably more accurate, to be fair. Oh dear. Right. So on the show, the next couple of weeks, we are going to be talking about the World Cup. We're not going to be ones that's going to be talking to you and trying to talk down to you about the Qatar as a country and talking about how the World Cup shouldn't be in that country. We're going to review some of England's performances and some of Chelsea players' performances in the World Cup. So we're going to be doing that between now and Christmas. We've also got a couple of surprises we might have in store for you between now and Christmas Day as well. We've got a potential New Year's Day blockbuster interview, so keep your eyes peeled on that one. If you're new to listening to the show, thank you, is appreciated. If you want to find us on social media, we are on there. Find us on Twitter at the Blue Day Pod. Find us on Facebook, Blue Day Podcast on Facebook, Instagram as well. We are on there. We try and upload as much content as possible. If you've got a question as well you want to bring up to Steve, you've got views that you want to put up as well, that you want to vent your anger and vent your frustration on Potterball and Todd and Jesus Christ, everything that goes on with Chelsea Football Club, email us at thebluedaypodcast@gmail.com. We aren't hard to find, trust me. We are open 7 days a week, 365 days in a year. We are open. We will be back next week with the Joe Allen exclusive interview, and we will also have something very, very special as well for our American listeners as well coming up on the Blue Day Podcast. Steve will be back very soon as well, because we're going to review Gareth Southgate's interesting World Cup campaign with the next 3 games with Iran, USA and Wales. But this has been the Blue Day Podcast. I've been Keith Lawrence. Keep the blue flag flying, folks. Stay safe and carefree.